Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast. I'm Ibrahim Shita, and I'm joined by Olamide Adeyemi. Olamide,
good morning, Ibrahim. It's a good, Monday morning. I'm sure you're in the festive mood.
Absolutely. Oh, festive mood. I'm still in the grinding. So maybe
really?
when we get to 25th, 26, 27, and then January the 1st.
I mean, we begin to see a lot of good luck around Lagos and all of
maybe
that.
you should go back home and start raving. Let us start off with the latest information that is coming up from Mali, about Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, who will officially leave the Economic Community of West African States on 29th of January. This was one of the major resolutions at the 66th Ordinary Session of the Ecowas Authority of Heads of State and Government. The regional bloc gave a 6-month extension as a transition window to allow diplomatic dialogue to continue. Moyo Thomas reports.
This is the 66th Ordinary Summit of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of Ecowas. The session opened with a farewell speech for the President of Ghana, as the session was his last as the President of Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu described the peaceful transition of power in Ghana as a beacon of democracy for the region.
This gesture, as it happened in Nigeria in 2015, demonstrated political maturity and respect for the wish of the people of Ghana. Today, we have the man now referred to as Mr. Democrat.
ECOWAS countries are expecting a slightly improved average growth rate of 3.8% compared to 3.6% in 2023.
After the closed-door session, President of the ECOWAS Commission announced the decision of the authority to accept the withdrawal of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso and launch withdrawal modalities from January 29, 2025.
The authority acknowledges that in accordance with the provisions of Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty, the three countries will officially cease to be members of ECOWAS from 29 January 2025. The authority decides to set the period from 29 January 2025 to 29 July 2025 as a transitional period and to keep ECOWAS doors open.
As we move forward to implement the outcomes of this summit, let us remain united in our determination and steadfast in our commitment to the principles that bind us together as a community. I call on all member states to redouble their efforts in ensuring that decision reached here translates into tangible benefit for our citizens.
ECOWAS reiterates its commitment to the citizens of the community and says its decision to keep its doors opened for 6 months is in the spirit of unity and openness. ECOWAS says it is expecting collaboration to continue with Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso on border security and other forms of security, despite the approval of their withdrawal. The modalities for this will be contained in the contingency plan to be drawn up later on. Moyo Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
Security expert Darlington Umaru is joining us from Ghana to discuss this issue. Thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Umaru. Looking at the three countries in question, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, they've agreed to this grace period of 6 months. But if you look at these three countries, the three nations, they've also formed their own alliance. But what do you say about these 6 months? Is it a grace period for them to return to Nigeria, or will it be a final push for the divorce from this ECOWAS region?
Well, it's on two parts. To ECOWAS, it's a grace period for these three countries to be dissuaded from continuing with their agreed plan, which was supposed to have been hashed by next month on the 29th of January, to be precise. of course, the ECOWAS leadership does not really want these three countries to continue with their intent of leaving ECOWAS, knowing the implications, particularly the economic implication, and how this would affect the relations between them and other countries on the continent. But for these three countries, they have said there's no going back, that they have made up their mind to leave and they have left. But even so, they have opened some windows to ECOWAS. They don't want to take it as a fight. They have also told ECOWAS that they will still allow the free movement. These countries will be visa-free to other ECOWAS countries, which implies that movement will still be allowed by other countries in ECOWAS to come into these three countries. And so, for now, as it were, there's no, to them, they are not willing to return, to the ECOWAS arrangement. And so the grace period is not to change anything for them, as the case may be, because their minds are made up. This was what was initiated by ECOWAS and not by them. And so they say they are still going to be standing by what they have said. But the Senegalese president was brought into all of this. He has been the man in between, the man between ECOWAS and these other three nations, trying to woo them back, trying to convince them not to leave ECOWAS. And so it is expected that the Senegalese president and some other persons will intense their moves to convincing these three countries to change their heart during the 6 months. ECOWAS is...
And some have said that, the 6 month, timeline is possibly a last, effort by ECOWAS to ensure that these countries remain. And like you mentioned, they have termed their movement as irreversible. But let's talk about the security implication this will have. I believe that is the major question at this point. How it will pose a security threat to other nations in Africa within ECOWAS and all of that amidst terrorist threats?
Well, of course, you know that these countries, some of these countries share border with Nigeria particularly, and they also share border with some other West African countries as well. It means that for security, you won't be working as one anymore. The joint patrol team will be dissolved. Checks between countries you'll be on your own. They have formed a parallel body, like the first presenter say, which they call Alliance for Sahel States. That tells you that they are on their own now. And so, except you now reestablish bilateral relations with them on the basis of this new arrangement, that's when you can now begin to talk of joint security arrangement to police borders of those countries that share border with them. And then, so if you have some of them who share border with other West African states, it may not be a bloc thing anymore. It may not be a thing of individual arrangement. Nigeria will go establish bilateral relations with, for instance, Niger, where they share border directly, and then renegotiate their bilateral relations with them and go into a path that will cover security, joint security arrangement, which will be broken, which will be divorced immediately after July 29, if they still insist on leaving.
So if you look at the three nations, they've actually stated that territories would remain visa-free for ECOWAS citizens, and this region, the Sahel region, have about 400 million population. Well, ECOWAS is saying that they are looking for ways to get them back into their fold, according to the Senegalese president, Boussama Faye. But then some of the sanctions that were in place and some of the things that have been unfolding over the years, do you think that, what strategies do you think ECOWAS should bring to the table to ensure that this country, or countries rather, return to their fold? Because Russia is already getting in while France is getting away.
Well, of course, you know these are francophone countries, and one of the problems they have, like I spoke with somebody in an interview recently. He said a lot of things that were actually discouraging these francophone countries that want to break away from France. For instance, while the Anglophone countries control their individual central banks, the central banks of these countries are domiciled in France. And when they need money, it's given to them in the form of loan. And France has been in control of the economy of these francophone countries over time. And for whatever reasons they are protesting, I think they have said they are leaving France. And that is another kettle of fish on its own. And they have brought in Russia. You know the state of Russia at this point in time. Russia has been in war with Ukraine for a long time. And the other parts of the world, particularly the West and America, have been on the side of Ukraine, trying to protect Ukraine through the NATO arrangement, even though Ukraine is not a NATO nation. For Africa, for West Africa, it is a thing of, because ECOWAS does not encourage coup d'etat. And so because these three countries about 4 years ago chose to dissolve government that they had, and through coup d'etat, and ECOWAS, through our president, appealed to them to say, no, you cannot continue with coup d'etat. It's no longer, it's now an aberration in governance, and so they insisted that they must return power to those they took over from. And so that is their pain, particularly with the ECOWAS arrangement. So if ECOWAS is not allowing them to operate as a military arrangement, then they have no business staying in ECOWAS, because the ECOWAS rules does not permit any military arrangement again on this sub-region. And so I do not see ECOWAS giving it to them to say, okay, because we want you to stay, we'll allow you to continue to operate as a military formation. If they do that, they know the implication of that, and they know the danger in it. It means you would be legalizing a military arrangement on the sub-region, which could ordinarily begin to be emulated by some other countries. And so that's the fear. The fear is that ECOWAS does not want it to become a norm, and because they've done everything over time to expunge this system of governance.
Absolutely. Right. Well, this because of our time, this drama isn't just about ECOWAS versus the three countries. It's about, what is it? It's about the future we want for the West African region, whether it is unity or fragmentation. But we have to leave it here. Security expert Darlington Umaru, who was joining us from Ghana. Thank you so much for your insights this morning. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for waking me up so early.
Right.